Remember that when we talked about dividing in Pathfinder, I promised you to show you how to create a flower shape.
This video is brought to you by EpiPie's Academy.
So I'm keeping my promise now. First, I'll go to the ellipse tool and create an ellipse like so. I'll make it this red maybe, and give it a nice white stroke. Now, I'll switch to the convert anchor point and click the stop anchor point right here. This way we converted a curvy anchor point into a sharp one, so we are starting to create a petal. Now with the direct selection tool, I'll select these two anchor points and simply with the down arrow on my keyboard I'll nudge them down a few times. So just like that, in a few simple steps, we created a nice looking petal which we will rotate right now. Rotation is a very cool thing in Illustrator, but you need to know how to tackle it the right way. Okay, there are two ways, as always, of engaging the rotate tool. You can either select it from the tools panel right here, or we can simply use the shortcut, which is the letter R on the keyboard. Double-clicking it in the tools panel or pressing enter on the keyboard, that is, if we initiated the rotate tool first, will bring up a dialog box where you can enter a desired rotation value. Now, as default, the object will rotate around its center point. By the way, I'm using up arrow right now to change the rotation value, and holding down the shift key will rotate the object in 10-degree increments. But that's not what we want. We won't get a flower shape like that. So I'm going to cancel, and with my rotate tool still selected, I'm going to alt-click on this bottom anchor point. I still get the same dialog box, but if I now change the rotate value, the petal will rotate around the bottom anchor point. So a thing to remember, if you alt-click, you will make the object rotate around the point you clicked on the artboard. And yeah, it can be anywhere you want. Now, the really cool part of rotations. One of the best things in Illustrator, in my opinion. As I mentioned early in this course, you can make the software do calculations for you. Same thing applies here. What do I mean by that? If you want to have an even amount of shapes rotated, you can simply type in 360 degrees, because that's the full rotation, and divide it by the amount of copies of the shape you wish to get. Let me give you an example. Let me go back one step. Again, with my petal selected, I'll alt-click on the bottom anchor point, type in 360, and divide it by, say, 18. As you can see, Illustrator did the calculation for us, and apparently when you divide 360 by 18, you get 20. So what does it all mean? Well, instead of just clicking OK, which would simply rotate the petal, hit copy, you can see that we have a rotated copy of the shape. And what we can do now is we can go to the Object menu, Transform, Transform again. Or even better, we could use the Ctrl-D shortcut, which, as we already know, duplicates the last transformation. So I will hit Ctrl-D again, and again, and again, and I'll keep doing it so I have 18 petals in total. And now if I go again to my Pathfinder tool and choose Divide, I will get, well, almost a BP logo. And I did it in I don't know, like 2 minutes. Well, that's pretty cool, huh? So this is the power of rotating, guys. Once you get the hang of it, you'll be able to get fantastic results in no time. Now let's move on to reflecting. Reflecting, as the name suggests, either, well, reflects an object or makes a mirror copy of it. Let me show you how it works. But I'll clean up the artboard first. I'll grab the polygon tool and create a triangle. Now, to initiate the reflect tool, I'll use the O key on my keyboard. I could of course go to the tools panel and choose the reflect tool from here. Now, if I hit enter, I'll get the Reflect Tool dialog box where I can reflect the object horizontally or vertically. Horizontal reflection happens along the x-axis and vertical reflection happens along the y-axis. That's why, in this case, you can see the triangle reflect horizontally but not vertically. Of course, the vertical reflection is actually happening, but we just can't visually see it in this case. I could, of course, just like we did with the pedal, hit copy instead of OK to get the reflected copy of an object, like so. And if I alt-click somewhere on the artboard, I will change the reflection point. So I will alt-click this anchor point, and this is now the point which the transformation will relate to. Now you can see the horizontal and the vertical reflection taking place. Okay, so that's reflecting, and it's pretty straightforward, right? Well, so is scaling. The Scale tool has also a very handy shortcut, which is the letter S on the keyboard. Of course, all you clicking lovers could go to the Tools panel and choose Scale tool right here. I'll hit Enter to get the Scale tool dialog box. In here, I can scale the object uniformly, meaning proportionately, or I could choose to scale it only horizontally, only vertically, or a bit horizontally and a bit vertically for total control. And if you keep this option checked, you will make the stroke width and effects, for example drop shadow or glow, scale accordingly. Okay, so these are the basics of rotating, scaling, and reflecting, but that's not all. Illustrator gives us one more tool that sort of combines all these transformations together. And that tool is the Free Transform tool, which sits right here, and its shortcut is the letter E. Alternatively, we could simply go to the Selection tool, the black arrow if you will, and basically get the same results. Let's actually see what we can do here. Well, thanks to these little squares, we can very quickly scale an object or rotate it. And when I hold down the Shift key, I will scale it proportionately or rotate it in 45-degree increments. And if I hold down both the Shift key and the Alt key, I will scale the object from its center point. So these techniques give us maybe not that precise transformations as the rotate, scale, or reflect tools, but they can be very useful when you need quick results. Okay, now that we understand how to transform objects, let's apply the same techniques to anchor points. For starters, I gotta tell you that reflecting and rotating anchor points, especially in logo design process, is not something particularly helpful, at least in my logo design process. But unlike scaling, so if you want to discover rotating and reflecting anchor points for yourself, go ahead. But in terms of logo design process, let me show you how scaling affects anchor points. So I'll select these two anchor points. Hit S for scale, and see what happens when I change the uniform value. Yes, I'm simply making the anchor points further apart or bringing them closer together. And of course, I will get different results if I play around with horizontal and vertical values as well. So scaling anchor points, or pairs or groups of anchor points to be precise, is something really worth learning, and later when we move on to actually creating logos, you'll see me use it quite a bit. Okay, so now that we have basic understanding of moving, scaling, rotating, and reflecting, let's actually use that knowledge and create something interesting, and we will do it in the next video.